Recognizing the Leader of the Third Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, just say no. It's a strange coincidence that Ronald Reagan is having a revival in the tariff context. I remember Just Say No to Drugs from Ronald and Nancy Reagan in the 1980s. This images of an egg sizzling in a pan, this is your brain on drugs. Madam Speaker, it didn't work. Even DARE, the Drug Abuse Resistance Education, has since modernized its approach. I fully respect the member who has no doubt good intentions, and we all would like to see the end of drug use with our students. I do, however, disagree with the approach. The Third Party Caucus is committed to listening to experts and evidence. Those on the front lines of the toxic drug crisis are not asking for abstinence. In study after study after study, it's shown not to work. This private member's bill is so prescriptive. I can't help but feel that it's issues like this where we sit in this chamber and we can be out of touch with reality. We're constantly presented with problems and challenges. That's part of our work. Sometimes the solutions seem so simple. We could just wave our magic wand and ask everyone, especially our kids, to stop using drugs. But I worry that we only hear one side. We hear of schools teaching kids about safe supply and harm reduction, and that's alarming. But if a student is already using drugs, what's our obligation? I would suggest it's to help make sure they don't die, not to push an idealistic abstinence narrative. We in the third party often accused of being too idealistic, and I take that to heart. But in the case of some of these social issues, sometimes I wonder who is idealistic. The fact is, we live in a hard world, and trauma and personal challenges often lead to drug use. The fact is not that we aren't saying drugs are dangerous loudly enough, it's just that some students can't hear us. It's frustrating. We all want the same thing here. We want people to stop dying from a poisoned drug supply, and for everyone in this province, especially our youth, to live long and healthy lives. So it's not a question of differing values, it's a question of approach. I hear the term common sense in this chamber, and I worry sometimes that it's a knee-jerk response to anecdotes rather than evidence. Post-analysis showed that years after its inception, DARE, the Drug Abuse Resistance Education, its effectiveness was shown to be minimal. But the program remained popular among politicians and many members of the public because of a common intuition that the program ought to work. That's true, it ought to work. There's an idealism and common sense again. This bill is so prescriptive that it doesn't contemplate consultation with mental health and substance use experts, teachers, school boards, or First Nations. Frankly, they're the people who should be deciding what the messages are, where the posters go, and what individual students need to hear about drugs. I can't think of a more illustrative example of where we're running around trying to treat the symptoms instead of spending time and effort on the root causes. Yes, shame has a place in enforcing the social contract. Yes, compassion is not the only strategy here, although we do all need to remember that there, but for the grace of God, go we. Let's have a quick think about the root of the word stigma. It describes the wounds from crucifixion. As a society and as members of this House, haven't we progressed? Haven't we evolved our healthcare, our regulation, and our justice system beyond pure stigma? We need to talk more about the root causes of drug use, addiction, and overdose deaths. Childhood trauma, isolation, misinformation, unregulated and poison supply, and inadequate healthcare. The opposition seems to think it's the government sending the message that drugs are normal. Well, I have bad and sad news. Drugs are normal. They're everywhere. Not just legal drugs like Tylenol, Prozac, Viagra, hormone replacement therapy, or alcohol. Also, as we know, much more harmful drugs. This is the reality of the province that we live in. The question then is how we respond to this reality. In this caucus, we believe we respond by talking to experts and educators, people who have used drugs, people in treatment, people who work in healthcare, first responders, social workers, and the teachers who bring their school classes into this gallery every day. Instead of trying to convince kids to do what we say, we should educate them about how to understand drugs and drug abuse. The psychological, biochemical, and emotional background behind drug use needs to be taught in our education system. Doubling down on shame, stigma, and fear is the wrong message and the wrong approach for our education system. Our children deserve excellent evidence-based education to help them navigate this challenging world, and we owe them nothing less. This caucus will be voting against second reading of this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.